Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and greeting to all, especially my lecturer, Dr. Muhammad Naseem bin Niaz Ahmad. This is a group assignment video on the subject ECN3010 Economy Principle Group 7. My group choose the book as the product. Before proceeding with the presentation, I would like to introduce my group members.
My name is Muhammad Amin bin Fazil, nombor metrik 206728.
My name is Muhammad Sazani bin Muhammad Yunus, number metrik 205207.
My name is Nur Nabila binti Aziman. My metric number is 205545.
My name is Nur Izzah binti Razak and my metric number is 207239.
Thank you to all. Now let's start the presentation.
What is the meaning of demand and supply? People demand goods and services in an economy to satisfy all their desires. In economy, demand is different from desires, wish, want and like. Demand refers to effective demand. A consumer who wants or desires to have a product or service must have the ability to buy, purchasing power and willingness to pay for the said good or service. Ceteris paribus stand for all other things being unchanged and constant. The law of demand states that when the price of a good itself increases, the quantity demanded for the good will fall, and when the price of the good decreases, the quantity demanded will increase. Okay, we continue with the supply. Supply is defined as the producer's ability and willingness to supply different quantities of goods and service at different possible price and time range. The law of supply states that when the price of a good itself increases, the quantity supplied for the good will increase too, and when the price of the good decreases, the quantity supplied will decrease. In other words, the law of supply shows a positive relationship between the quantity supplied and the price of the good itself. Okay, we all choose a book as our product. Alright, on this data, demand of books, we can see that the price of the book increased from 6 ringgit to 9 ringgit, but the quantity demanded for book will fall from 60 unit to 50 units. Conversely, when the price of the book decreased from 12 ringgit to 6 ringgit, the quantity demanded for books will increase from 60 to 70 units. Next, this figure shows the demand curve for book that is plotted based on the demand schedule in that table. The most crucial determinant of demand is the price of the good itself.
So, this is part of supply. Did you know what is a supply? Basically, supply is the quantity that the manufacturer is willing to offer at the each price level. So, this table show about supply of books. At the RM3 ringgit price level, the quantity of books offered is 40 units. At the 6 ringgit price level, the quantity of books offered is 15 units. At the 9 ringgit price level, the quantity of books offered is 16 units. And the RM12 ringgit price level, the quantity of books offered is 70 units. The lastly is at the 15 price level, the quantity of books offered is 19 units. So you can see the curve that show the supply of book, and it's basically same as a data. So the next slide is the data supply and demand of books. In this data, we can see that at the RM3 ringgit price level, the quantity of books demand is 16 units and the quantity of book offered is 14 units. At the 6 ringgit level, the quantity of book demand is 70 units, while the quantity of book supply is 15 units. At the 6 ringgit price level, we can see that the quantity of books demand is 60 units and the quantity of books supply is 16 units. And at the 12th price level, the quantity of book demand is 50 units, while the quantity books offered is 70 units. At the 15th price level, the quantity of book demand is 40 units, while the quantity of the books offered is 60 units. So based on the supply and the demand table of the book, I can make a market equilibrium curve. Basically, the market equilibrium is reached when the quantity demand equals the quantity of supply. So you can see the curve. So at the 12 ringgit price level, market is imbalance according to excess supply. The quantity demand is 70 units, but the quantity supply is 50 units. So there is an oversupply of 20 units. This causes book price to be forced down and procedure to reduce supply while demand will increase. This process continues until the book market reach the price level at Rm9 ringgit and the equilibrium quantity of 60 units, which is at a E0 point. Okay, then book market equilibrium is reached when the demand curve and the supply curve intersect at the E0 point. At the price level of Rm9 ringgit and the quantity is 16 units. This means that there is no excess or shortage of demand and supply. So lastly, book market imbalance occur due to excess demands. The demand quantity is 50 units, but the supply quantity is 70 units. So there is an excess demand of 20 units. This causes price to be forced to rise and producer to increase supply while demand will be decreased. The process continues until the book market reach equilibrium at the Rm9 ringgit price stick and the equilibrium quantity at 60 units.
For the quantity change supply, when the price increase from P1 to P2, the quantity offered increase from Q1 to Q2. When price falls from P2 to P1, the quantity offered will decrease from Q2 to Q1. Change of quantity supply due to the change in price of the item itself, which is books, movement will occur along the same curve. Next, change of supply. If there is a change in factors other than the price of the item itself, the offer curve will shift either to the right or to the left. Movement of supply curve from SOSO to S1S1, which is to the right due to an increase in supply at the same price level. Movement of supply curve from SOSO to S2S2 to the left due to a reduction in supply at the same price level. Next, quantity change demand. When the price increase from P1 to P2, the requested quantity will fall from Q2 to Q1. When the price falls from P1 to P2, requested quantity will increase from Q1 to Q2. change of quantity demanded due to the change in price of the item which is booked. Movement will occur along the same curve. Next, change of demand. If there is a change in factors other than the price of the item itself, the demand curve will switch either to the right or to the left. Movement of demand curve from DODO to D1D1 to the right due to an increase in demand at the same price level. Movement of demand curve from DODO to D2D2 to the left due to a reduction in demand at the same price level.
I will continue the present about the factor affecting the demand for a goods and the factor that affect the supply of a goods. Okay, let's see the factor affecting the demand for a good. The first factor is change in population size. As the population size increase, then the demand curve shift from D0 to D1 As a result, at the same price, the quantity of books increase from Q0 to Q1. Second factor is income change. As customer incomes increase, the demand curve shift from D0 to D1. As a result, at the same price, the quantity of book increase from Q0 to Q1. And third factor is change in customer taste. As customer taste for books increase, the demand curve shift from D0 to D1. As a result, at the same price, the quantity of books increase from Q0 to Q1. Now let's see the factor that affect the supply of goods. First factor is subsidies or expenditure. When the government subsidies producer, the FRIMA production cost will fall. The supply curve will shift from S0 to S1. As a result, supply will increase from Q0 to Q1. Second factor is change in input price. As input price increase, producer cost will increase. The supply curve will shift from S0 to S2. As the result, supply will decrease from Q0 to Q2. This is an example graph for factor number 3. The factor number 3 is the price of the good itself. When the price rises from P1 to P2, the quantity offered increase from Q1 to Q2. But when the price rises from P2 to P1, the quantity offered increase from Q2 to Q1. That's all from me. I will pass the presentation to the next presenter.
In conclusion, supply and demand together determine market equilibrium. On a graph, market equilibrium is the point where the supply and demand curve intersect. The price at this intersection is the equilibrium price and the quantity is the equilibrium quantity. When the market for good or service is in equilibrium, there are no surpluses and no shortages. Alright, that's all from us. Thank you, Doctor. Assalamualaikum.